When it comes to the major video game genres, I'd say that puzzle games is the genre definition of Sonic the Hedgehog. I believe both share a 50-50 split between their respective communities, but the condition for puzzle games are a bit different. Either you love them or you're not smart enough to understand Bejeweled. I'm sorry, but how can you not understand this? It makes Candy Crush look like amateur hour. There's a wide variety of puzzle games for every type of player. Mobile games, console games, PC games. They're all over the place and no one ever talks about them, nor do they choose to unironically talk about them. And then there's me. People understand solitaire more than bubble shooter games. I don't know how that happened. But puzzle games aren't limited to just colorful shapes and playing match the blue square with the other blue square. I mean, 2048 is a good option. I believe that puzzle games were mainly meant for mobile devices because it's so easy to pick up and play these things with one hand. You're usually allowed to take your time and work at your own pace, but at the cost of having a limit to how many times you can move in one game. So you have to meet the level requirements within a specific amount of moves, and sometimes you have to turn your brain on and no one likes doing that, or you can use special powers that'll help you out. These are more so the slide and match games. A big board full of different shapes as their own colors, and you must match 3 or more together, and the more you match, the better the reward you get. That'll make things easier for you. These types of games are the best for mobile, and there's so many different variations with their own coats of paint. My personal favorites are Candy Crush Soda, the Bejeweled games, Puzzle Quests, and Family Guy, the freaking mobile game. But there's one game that's like Candy Crush to an extent, but it adds a new element to make it a top tier puzzle game, and that's 2 dots. Only being able to draw a line of dots as long as they're parallel with each other is super unique and one of my favorite mobile games ever. But let's take a look at a phone real quick, and if you close your eyes and focus while doing some Doctor Strange hand movements, it's a work in progress. Puzzle games on consoles are some beautiful pieces of art, from Puzzle League to Puyo Puyo to Portal 2 to Untitled Goose Game. I think we should have stayed with games that started with the letter P. I hear Fez is pretty decent. A huge upgrade to mobile puzzle games because the Sega Game Gear is more powerful than an iPod Nano. But there is one puzzle game that is known to be on nearly every device that has ever been made for nearly the past 40 years and has the same gameplay for every single game that releases, and that includes the bad ones. Pac-Man was great, but today, let's talk about floating blocks that are literally shaped as 26% of the alphabet. Tetris made its debut on June 6, 1984, and it has a very interesting history as being the most iconic puzzle game ever. So I'll give you some cliff notes. Russia. That's it. Yeah, the entire concept of Tetris was originated by a software engineer in the Soviet Union, and it was inspired by another game that was very similar to Tetris, and after some time we got it all over the world. It's a very eye-opening origin story that we play a game that originated in the country that the Olympics refuses to say the true name of. The first Tetris that caught the world's attention was Tetris on the FNES, aka the first Nintendo Entertainment System. The overall game of Tetris is to place down blocks known as tetraminos and clear lines. Clearing lines gives you points, and you can clear up to 4 lines at once, and that results in a Tetris. And if your blocks get too high on the grid, then it's game over. It's a very simple concept, but you have to risk getting addicted, and let me tell you, as a huge fan of Tetris, I personally say it's worth it. Honestly, one of my favorite gaming franchises ever, and in my opinion, the best puzzle franchise. We have a huge list of games to go over, so let's start off with the Game Boy. Tetris launched with this brick with buttons, and this is how many older players remember this game, with the ugly green filter that makes my eyes want to pop out of their sockets. Luckily, when the Game Boy Color was released, we eventually got a Tetris game that didn't discriminate. Alright, so I'm just now realizing that if I go over the long list of Tetris games I want to talk about, we'd be here for like 3 hours. So let's switch up the formula. Major Tetris releases, or ones that stand out to me. Go. Tetris, NES and Game Boy. Tetris 2, SNES. Tetris Battle Gaiden, Super Famicom. V Tetris, Virtual Boy. Tetris Attack, SNES and Game Boy. 3D Tetris, Virtual Boy. Tetris DX, Game Boy Color. Tetris 64. Take a guess. Tetris Worlds, PC and PS2. Tetris DS, Nintendo DS. Tetris Splash, Xbox 360. Tetris Giant, Arcades. Tetris Party Deluxe, Nintendo Wii. Tetris Battle, PC/Facebook. Tetris Blitz, mobile and PC. Puyo Puyo Tetris, every 8th generation console. Tetris 99, Nintendo Switch. And Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 on every 8th and current gen console. All of these games have one thing in common aside from being Tetris games. Well, it's mainly the gameplay. Tetris has hardly ever switched up the usual gameplay or tried something different because the formula is so safe, but there's really no reason to try something different, but it would be nice every now and then. Every Tetris game has different visuals, music, and an overall vibe. Some are very chill and vibey like Tetris Splash and Tetris DS, but there are others that'll have you at the edge of your seat like Tetris Battle Royale. And to think that Tetris Battle feels like the most unofficial official Tetris game ever, but it's one of the most popular. Rest in peace, Tetris Battle. But we're here to talk about what I believe to be the best Tetris game ever. It's my absolute favorite and I've always wanted to talk about it. Well, more so in the deeper sense of actual context and not just one aspect. So let's go back to a cool year known as 2012. This was the year that a massive Tetris game would start development. It was so big that there wasn't a single Tetris game that came out in 2012, which is insane to think about, because this was the first time we never got a Tetris game in a year. 2011 to 2013. Yeah, someone probably didn't do their math right. But there's a first time for everything, and a year without Tetris was bound to happen at some point. Co-producer Tetsuya Mizuguchi had wanted for many years to produce a music-based game around Tetris, but there were a lot of licensing issues because EA is EA, I really don't need to say anything else. And around 2012, Mizuguchi began discussing with Hank Rogers, the founder of the Tetris company, about developing a version of Tetris set to music with a zone that players would achieve while playing, leading to the start of Tetris Effect being greenlit for development. And 6 years later, Tetris Effect would release on November 9th, 2018 on PS4 alongside the addition of the game being available for VR. This was a really good decision to be made because with Tetris you don't have to move around an area and risk punching your grandma in the face. You can just sit down and enjoy playing Tetris on your face. Later on, a Microsoft Windows version with support for Oculus Rift and other VR systems launched on July 23, 2019, followed by the Oculus Quest on May 14, 2020. Upon launch date, Tetris Effect was met with critical acclaim, with many critics praising new game modes, the soundtrack, the visuals, and the brand new edition of VR, with some critics claiming it as a fitting love letter to the Tetris franchise. Not too long after the Oculus Quest version was released, on July 23, 2020, there was an announcement that Tetris Effect would be released on the Xbox Series consoles, Xbox One, and Windows 10 via the Microsoft Store, and it was released on November 10, 2020. This was announced as Tetris Effect Connected. This would include a new cooperative multiplayer as well as the new competitive mode that pays homage to the first console versions of Tetris with its simplified visual art style and stricter rules similar to those used during the classic Tetris World Championships. Connected was soon released on Steam August 18, 2021 and would soon come to the Nintendo Switch on October 8, 2021. So let's get into this artistic masterpiece and see what we got to work with. This is Tetris Effect. So starting off with the journey mode, I'll tell you something, this is not your traditional story mode. I believe this is the type of narrative that you create yourself as you play and come up with your own message of what you're playing through. Basically, we make our way through all of the stages in Tetris Effect in bunches of levels and make steady progress towards the end. This level tree is a beauty to look at when you're ready to take on the next challenge. There really isn't much to say here, it's just Tetris gameplay and stages in a specific order. If Tetris ever made a true story, let's hope it stays away from Puyo Puyo. Alright, so this is where things start to get a little more interesting. A nice variety of game modes to play, and they're split up in 4 different moods: classic, relax, focus, and adventurous. Let's go down the list one by one and check out these bad boys and see what they throw at us. Alright, so let's start off with classic. These modes are the most traditional and common ways of playing Tetris in any of the games. No nonsense, just straight Tetris gameplay with nothing to make you want to jump off a cliff. First up is Marathon. This is the most vanilla Tetris mode in the game, and nearly every Tetris game has a mode as default as this. Complete 150 lines and score as many points as you possibly can as fast as you can. And dude, it does not get more simple than this. Next up is Zone Marathon. It's the exact same as Marathon, but we gain access to the zone mechanic that this game throws at us. You'll be able to stop time and start racking up points by completing lines. This goes on for however much zone meter you have. The lines you complete don't contribute to your overall line count, but once the zone is over, you get a ton of points, and that's mainly what this mechanic is used for. Although you can also use it as a way to get yourself out of a rut if you've had one too many missed drops, and it's a good way to reset your grid to something less anxious. Moving on to one of my favorite modes in the game, and it's a shame that it's so short, but it's the Ultra mode. This mode is a personal favorite because of the Tetramino sound effects and how they match with the music whenever you move or rotate your Tetramino, just like every other stage in the game, but here it's a lot different. You can make some really catchy sounds with these two elements, and it's a shame that it's only 3 minutes long. Just score as high as you possibly can within the time limit. I mainly come back to it whenever I feel like creating a beat I'll never use, but it's a lot of fun, and I wish there was a way to make this longer. The next mode has the same concept as Ultra, but its name is very fitting. The sprint mode is where you have to clear 40 lines as fast as possible. This mode advertises you to get better and go faster or go for more improved times in any way you possibly can, and it makes you think on the spot about your block placements because time is of the essence. Well, at least the description wasn't lying, but I was built to play Tetris at a fast pace. I'm a master of Tetris. That's what I tell myself before I go to sleep every night. The final classic mode is the classic score attack. This brings you back to the OG Tetris game on consoles. No hard drop, no ghost blocks, just raw Tetris gameplay with some beautiful reimagined classic Tetris graphics. Moving on to the next mood, relax. This represents the concept of Tetris being more of a relaxing experience instead of stress-inducing colorful blocks and guns. No game overs and more customization. Starting off with a chill marathon. This allows you to play the marathon mode with no threat of game overs. Once you overflow the grid, you just restart with a clean slate. You can also customize the Tetramino speed to random or fixed, change the initial speed to whatever level you want up to 15, and change the clear goal to any number from 150 to 600 lines. It's great to have this option, and we can really soak in these beautiful visuals and audio. What else is there to be said? In this mode, instead of the speed level constantly getting faster as the game goes by, this time around the speed is set to a fixed level from 1 through 15. You can also change up the clear goal from 30 to 600 lines. Even more relaxation than the chill marathon, as it also comes with no game overs. Next up are some pretty cool ideas, the playlist series of modes. A marathon of 3 different themes to be played, starting off with the beautiful waves of the sea. We get the deep, Dolphin surf, mermaid cove, and jellyfish chorus to experience the art of James Cameron and drowning. Next up is soaring through the air as the wind flows through our hair. I'm so sorry to all the bald people out there. Vinci, balloon high, deserted, and finishing off with the sunset breeze. Wrapping up the playlist series with the beautiful colors of the wide world we live in. Prayer circles, Zen blossoms, jeweled veil, and karma wheel. It's really cool to replay through these modes, and all you have to do for each stage is clear 30 lines for a total of 120 per playlist. This totally could have gone deeper with other stages and presented us with some different themes. We could possibly even make our own playlists of 4 or more stages and play them back to back. It's a cool idea, maybe in the next Tetris game. The next mode makes you lean forward in your chair just a tad bit and puts you in gamer mode. Focus is the most intense mode in the game because you have to do as the game says and focus. 3 unique modes that give us the ultimate puzzle element of Tetris, starting off with all clear. In Tetris, if you complete your grid to where it's completely empty, it results in an all clear. A very hard accomplishment, but when you pull it off, it feels so damn good. With this mood, we're set in one general area known as Mandala. I don't know anything about it except for the fact that it looks absolutely stunning. In the all clear mode, you must gain as many all clears as possible within the time limit. You get 1 minute, but with every all clear you get a time boost, and once time runs out, it's game over. It's really cool to figure out these puzzles, especially with the T blocks and the ones where you have to use multiple blocks instead of just one. Next up is combo. Keep up the combo until all the gray blocks disappear, and if you break the combo, you move on to the next one. It's a cool way of testing your knowledge and finding different ways of keeping up a combo. The last focus game is Target. Clear out the target as many times as you possibly can before time runs out. This is where you have to be the most creative, mainly because it doesn't matter how or where you place the blocks, but as long as you're able to destroy the target, it's fine. I believe it's without a doubt the hardest of the focus games, but it'll make you think on the spot before the target explodes in your face. The final mood is for the players seeking a nice challenge. Adventurous is right up your alley. Let's kick off things with a countdown. At first glance, you wouldn't expect this. We're playing normal Tetris, but after some drops, an eyepiece drops in a highlighted spot on the grid. You gotta figure out ways to balance things out and bring in a natural way of playing Tetris. Moving on to purification. So basically we're trying to get rid of infected blocks with these heavenly looking blocks, and it's basically the opposite of Plague Incorporated if it was a Tetris game. And finally, we got mystery. Literally anything can happen according to the description, as it's mainly bad things that can happen, but some good things can also come up as well. Most of the bad things are more so inconvenient, but there are some legit bad ones, like not knowing what block comes next, or not being able to use your hold, or no ghost blocks. Like, why? It's super random, but that's what makes it the most replayable mode in the game in my opinion. So that's all the offline modes we have access to, and I like that there's something here for everyone. Whether you're super sweaty and want a challenge, or you're trying to regain your consciousness after rage quitting Smash Bros. So because Connected was originally released for multiplayer, it only makes sense for me to start talking about playing with and against people, but be warned, there is a possibility that the game will sense how lonely you are and queue up some bots so you can feel safe and secure. So we got 3 different multiplayer matches to choose from: ranked, friend match, and local. Ranked is exactly what you think: go up against people and either win or lose points and climb up the ranks of the Tetris gods. Friend matches where you can create rooms for people to join and have fun with, and local matches offline multiplayer. Not so hard to explain, but when we get to the modes themselves, it's still not that hard to explain. Let's start off with Connected Versus. This is a 4-player mode as 3 players go up against 1 player who acts as the boss. It's super unique. The team of 3 has to try to overflow the boss's grid and work together to complete the goal. The circle below is the zone gauge that fills up throughout the game based on the lines completed by each player. Once it's filled all the way up, the entire team's grid do a DBZ fusion and gets this massive zone space that lasts about 15 years, and we all take turns placing down blocks and let the zone mechanic do its thing. It's a lot of fun, but there is one red I'll give this. Whenever you overload your grid, you can revive yourself, but you have to click the button to the rhythm of the song. It's a cool concept, but why does it take so long to get back into the action? You might as well be eliminated. Now moving on to Connected. It's the exact same thing as Connected Versus, but instead of 4 players, it's 3 players in a team against a boss that's an AI. Every single part of it is exactly the same, so let's move on to Zone Battle. This is the most basic multiplayer mode, as it's just a 1v1 with zone mechanics against people online, local play or bots. It's nothing special, but it's nothing boring either. The final 2 modes are basically the same thing: Score Attack and Classic Score Attack. Score higher than your opponent and choose between Modern Tetris or Boomer Tetris. I believe this game does online very well, because how can you possibly mess up online Tetris? It's like unironically trying not to breathe. You couldn't possibly mess it up. So before we get to the greens and reds, I bet you're wondering about the stages. Well, I have a future plan for those, but all I'll say for now is that they are so beautiful and so unique in their own ways, with amazing music, sound effects, and the overall aesthetic is top tier greatness. Every stage is its own experience, and that fits this entire game as a whole, so let's get into the greens and reds. If you've ever wanted a Tetris game where you don't actually have to play the game of Tetris and just enjoy the visuals, Tetris Effect has Theater Mode. It allows you to vibe out to the best wallpapers you'll ever see. You can evolve the stages to different phases if you want a certain look or a specific part of a song, and you can just relax and let the best ASMR game put you to sleep. This game knew exactly what it wanted to be as soon as it was in development. It wanted to be different, but also give us the amazing yet simple Tetris gameplay we all know and love. It decided to be unique, and it was praised for doing so. I agree with the critics, as this is a beautiful love letter to the entire franchise of Tetris. The addition of online was definitely a welcome one. I love the Connect game mode, as it's a super unique mode and this gives the game more value and charm. I would have been a bit more conflicted to make this a red if they didn't add online, but luckily they made the right decision. So you're probably wondering, why are we back to the normal background? What about the red background? Well, I don't think this game has any reds. Not only do I think the greens are super impactful, even though it is a small amount, I also believe that Tetris Effect has 0 reds. I don't think there is anything wrong with this game. There's no problems here. You'll see it in my rating, but I don't believe there are any reds in this game. Not really surprised, since this is a Tetris game and it's super hard to mess up. Well, we did have to work up to where we are today, because we did get Hatris in Tetris 2, so I guess it's safe to say that they learned from their mistakes. Tetris is an icon in video games. You can even find it on your 40-year-old Sega Game Gear that's stuck in your couch cushion and still have a blast. It's so easy, but the best part of it is that it always works. Tetris, being the god of all puzzle games, is one that I've appreciated for a very long time and still do. It's going to be super hard to top Tetris Effect, aka the best Tetris game, and I will not hear your opinion if you think 3D Tetris on the V-Boy is better. Respectfully.